My partner Eric and I had been planning a Hocking Hills cabin weekend for almost 6 months. We finally arrived on a Friday afternoon at 4 p.m. The next morning at 8, Eric stood in the bathroom doorway with his coffee. He asked me a question, whether smoke detectors are supposed to be mounted at oblique angles to the ceiling. He pointed up. The smoke detector in the bathroom was mounted off-center on the ceiling near the door, angled toward the bathtub. Most smoke detectors are mounted flush in the middle of the room. This one was offset and angled, and it had a red status LED that was visible from where Eric was standing. I'm Naomi, 34, software engineer in Akron. Eric is 36, a high school teacher, coaches the JV football team at his school in the fall, runs the Buckeyes pool in the faculty lounge every August. We had been together 6 years and had been talking about getting married for the past year. The Hocking Hills cabin had been our anniversary trip. 3 nights, secluded, hot tub, hiking trail behind the property. The listing had been on my Pinterest board for 2 years before we finally pulled the trigger. We had paid $1,800, including cleaning fees. We had booked through Airbnb. The listing had 400 reviews, 4.8 stars, Superhost badge. We had not thought twice. I went into the bathroom with Eric. I looked up at the smoke detector. The angle was off. Flush smoke detectors are typically mounted on a flat ceiling rosette plate, with the center line of the detector perpendicular to the ceiling. This one was tilted toward the bathtub at maybe a 12-degree angle. The red status LED was a small dot of light visible through the detector grill. Most smoke detectors do have a status LED that blinks every minute. This one did not blink. It was solid red. I want to be careful describing what I did next because I have thought about it many times. The thing is, I am a software engineer. I work at a security software company. The visual heuristic of device that is off-axis and has unusual LED behavior is something I had been trained to register without realizing. Honestly, the years of doing pen test debriefs with our QA team had probably given me the reflex more than any formal training. I did not climb up to the smoke detector. I did not touch anything. I took out my phone. I photographed the smoke detector from 6 different angles. I photographed the ceiling around it. I photographed the wall directly across from the bathtub where the angle would point. I sat down on the bathroom floor and zoomed in on the smoke detector's grill on my phone screen. Through the grill, slightly behind the actual smoke detector electronics, I could see a small lens. The lens was a pinhole, about the size of a peppercorn. It was angled at the bathtub. I went back into the main cabin room. Eric was still holding his coffee. I told him to come into the kitchen so we could talk without being in any bathroom or bedroom. I told him what I had seen. We did not look at each other for about 30 seconds. He sat down at the kitchen counter. I sat across from him. We did not turn on any lights we did not need. I made the decision in about 3 minutes that we would not finish the weekend. I called Hocking County Sheriff's Office on my cell phone from outside the cabin, standing in the parking area, away from any visible camera angle. The dispatcher took my report. She said a deputy would be at the cabin within an hour. I called Airbnb's emergency stay line. The Airbnb agent walked me through the formal report procedure. The agent did not initially offer a refund or relocation. That came after we had already left. Hocking County Sheriff Deputy Reginald arrived at the cabin in 47 minutes. He took our statement. He looked at the photographs on my phone. He did not climb up to the smoke detector either. He called for a warrant. The warrant was issued by a magistrate at the courthouse the next morning, Sunday. Eric and I had packed our bags and driven home Saturday night to my mother's house in Akron. Deputy Reynolds came back to the cabin Sunday morning at 9, with 2 other deputies and an electronics evidence specialist from the BCI lab. They removed the smoke detector. Inside was a Wi-Fi-enabled pinhole camera with an SD card. The SD card had 53 video files on it. The earliest file was dated 11 months before our visit. The cabin had been owned by an Akron man, name redacted in this telling, who had been listing the property on Airbnb for 2 years. The 53 files on the SD card were guests recorded in the bathroom during their stays. 27 of the files contained adults. 26 of the files contained children, either with parents during bath time or alone using the toilet. The BCI lab cataloged every file. The Akron man was arrested at his Akron residence 3 days after the warrant was executed at the cabin. He was charged with 33 felony counts, 26 counts of illegal photography of a minor, 6 counts of voyeurism in a private place, and an enhancement for repeat offender pattern under Ohio's amended 2023 statute. He pleaded guilty to a stipulated package 6 months later. 10 years state prison, lifetime sex offender registry, lifetime ban from any short-term rental license in Ohio, civil restitution to identified victims, to be determined. The 53 video files were entered into evidence under seal. The prosecutor's victim services office identified and notified approximately 68 guests across the 11 months of recording. The prosecutor walked Eric and me through the file directly applicable to us. 2 files, both from our Saturday morning when we had been at the cabin. Eric had used the bathroom Saturday morning. I had used it Saturday morning, both before and after my shower. Both incidents were on the SD card. Eric had a hard time with the disclosure. The trial revealed something. The perpetrator had a history of pre-Airbnb voyeurism convictions in 2 other states. The convictions had not been reflected in his Airbnb host profile. Airbnb's background check process did not, at that time, pull non-Ohio convictions. The civil case, Eric and I joined as plaintiffs, alongside approximately 40 other identified guests, settled with Airbnb for an undisclosed amount per plaintiff, plus a corporate policy commitment to expanded multi-state background checks. Eric and I had 8 months of individual therapy, 4 months of couples counseling. We do not book private vacation rentals anymore. We do hotel chains. We pay more. We are still together. We have not gotten married, although the conversation has restarted in the past year. The thing I come back to is that I had photographed the smoke detector for 6 angles before I had looked through the grill. I had taken the photos out of professional habit, not out of suspicion. The professional habit had given me the documentation that the deputy and the BCI lab and the prosecutor all needed. If I had not photographed the angles first, the perpetrator might have had time to remove the device between my call to Airbnb and the deputy's arrival. The photographs had been the chain of custody evidence. I had taken them because the angle had been wrong, and I had been trained, by a job I had taken because it paid well, to document anomalies before I escalated. During the trial, the prosecutor entered the perpetrator's online activity records. He had been ordering pinhole camera kits and hidden recording device hardware from 3 different overseas suppliers across the preceding 2 years. The shipping records showed 17 separate camera kit purchases. The cabin we had stayed in had only 1 device installed at the time of our visit, but the BCI lab investigation later determined that he had been planning to install 3 more devices in the bedrooms and the kitchen. Those additional devices were found uninstalled in his Akron residence's basement, still in their original shipping packaging. The prosecutor said the cabin had been a pilot installation. If our trip had not interrupted the operation, the next renovation cycle, scheduled for the following month, would have multiplied the camera coverage by 4. I'd been working 70-hour weeks at the firm for 3 months. My wife Tasha booked us a 3-night Airbnb in Silver Spring, Maryland for our wedding anniversary. We checked in at 7 p.m. on a Friday. 20 minutes into our unpacking, Tasha walked back into the living room holding a closet key. The key had not matched the lock the listing had said it would match. The closet in the bedroom had a deadbolt-style lock. The Airbnb listing's lockbox had included a key labeled closet. The key didn't turn. Tasha had tried it twice. I'm Reginald, 41, financial advisor in DC Metro. Fee-only practice, 2-person office off Georgia Avenue. Tasha is 40, an emergency room nurse. We had been married 12 years. We had met at Sunday service at our church in Northeast DC, back when we were both in our 20s. Our anniversary trips had always been the kind of small ritual that you build over a long marriage. The Silver Spring Airbnb was our compromise. We had originally booked a beach rental, but Tasha had to be back at work Monday morning, so we had switched to a short trip rental 30 minutes from our house. The rental was a 2-bedroom row house, listed at 4.9 stars, 240 reviews. Superhost badge, 48-hour cancellation, which we had not used. Honestly, we had not thought we would need it. Tasha is a methodical person. She is also an emergency room nurse, with 20 years of experience reading whether things are off. When she said the closet key did not match the closet lock, the implication for both of us was that the lockbox had been swapped or the closet had been rekeyed. Either way, something about the listing was not consistent with what we were holding. I want to be careful describing what we did in the next 90 minutes. The police walked us through every detail twice. Twice in formal interviews plus 3 or 4 more times in pretrial deposition prep. Tasha and I went into the bedroom together. We looked at the closet lock. The lock was a brass deadbolt, different from the bedroom door's interior knob lock, which was a standard residential push button. The closet deadbolt was newer, with a different brand stamping. The plate around the lock had small scratches that suggested it had been installed recently. The key we had been given was clearly meant for a different lock, different brand, different cut pattern. We did not force the closet open. I want to be specific about that because the prosecutor told us later that we had done the right thing. Tasha said very quietly that something was off and we should look at the rest of the unit before we did anything else. We did. We did a slow walk of the bedroom. The first thing we noticed was that the alarm clock on the nightstand was angled toward the bed, rather than toward the door. Alarm clocks should be angled so the display faces the sleeper's nightstand side. This one was facing the bed. It was a USB charging-capable alarm clock with a small built-in lens for what was supposedly a sleep tracking feature. The bedroom television was mounted on a swivel. The swivel was angled toward the bed. The television's small webcam-style camera unit at the bottom of the bezel, which is standard on smart TVs for video calling functionality, was active. The TV was off, but the camera unit's status LED was lit. The third thing we noticed was the USB phone charger plugged into the wall outlet near the bedhead. The charger was a brand we did not recognize. It had a small dome on its housing that did not match standard charger designs. The dome had a pinhole at its center. We did not touch any of the devices. We walked into the living room. We turned on all the lights. Tasha sat on the couch. I sat at the dining table. I called Airbnb safety line. I told them what we had found. The agent escalated. We were told to leave immediately, document via photos, and contact local police. We took photos of the closet lock, the closet key, the alarm clock, the TV, the USB charger, and the bedroom layout. We left within 40 minutes of the call to Airbnb. We checked into a Hampton Inn 2 blocks away. We slept 0 hours that night. Tasha called Montgomery County Police from the hotel at midnight. A detective came to the hotel to take our statement at 1 a.m. The detective requested a warrant. The warrant was granted by a magistrate at 4 a.m. Montgomery County PD entered the rental at 5 a.m. The officers found 7 cameras across the unit, 2 in the bedroom, 2 in the second bedroom we had not even opened the door of, 2 in the living room, and 1 in the kitchen. The closet in the bedroom, which we had not been able to open, contained the recording equipment, a hard drive, and a small monitor. The hard drive contained approximately 400 hours of recorded footage from 7 different guest stays over the previous 9 months. 6 of the 7 prior guests had filed complaints with Airbnb about feeling watched or about cameras being suspiciously present. Airbnb had not acted on any of those complaints. The complaints had been classified as perceptual disputes without further review. The host was arrested at his Silver Spring residence, 3 blocks from the rental, that same morning at 8 a.m. He was charged with 7 counts of unlawful surveillance, plus criminal possession of recording devices in private spaces, plus criminal trespass on his own property under Maryland's amended 2024 statute. The statute considers vacation rental tenants to have private space rights equivalent to apartment tenants, plus prior pattern enhancement under the same statute. He pleaded guilty to a stipulated package 11 months later. 4 years state prison, lifetime sex offender registry, lifetime ban from short-term rental licensing in Maryland. The civil case Tasha and I joined as plaintiffs, with the 6 prior complainants as additional plaintiffs, settled with Airbnb for $250,000 total, divided equally among the 7 plaintiff families. Tasha and I received approximately $35,000. The settlement included Airbnb's commitment to a corporate policy change. Any guest complaint about suspected surveillance must now trigger a within 24-hour off-site inspection, rather than a perceptual dispute classification. Tasha changed jobs 8 months after our incident. Her previous hospital was in Silver Spring, less than a mile from the rental. She could not drive past the rental's neighborhood on her way to work. She transferred to a hospital in Bethesda. She had 6 months of therapy. I had 4 months. We never went back to the rental. The host's property was sold at a sheriff's auction following the conviction. I do not know who bought it. The thing I come back to is the closet lock. The host had installed a new closet lock so that we would not be able to access the closet. He had given us a key that he knew did not work, so that if we tried to open the closet and failed, we would assume the lock was just broken, and we would not push further. The non-matching key had been the visible anomaly that triggered Tasha's pattern recognition cascade. The alarm clock, the TV camera, the USB charger. If the key had matched and the closet had opened normally, we would have found the recording equipment ourselves. The host had bet that a wrong key would make us shrug. He had not bet that Tasha was an ER nurse who reads inconsistencies as alerts. The prosecutor's office disclosed during pretrial a fact. The host had been a registered property manager for 2 other vacation rental units in Montgomery County, under different LLC names. Both of those additional properties were searched following his arrest. Neither contained cameras. Both, however, contained installation hardware. Drilled mounting holes in ceilings and walls, plastic shims behind paintings, threaded conduit through bedroom drywall, consistent with prior camera installations that had been removed. The detective who walked me through the second property searches said the prior installations appeared to have been removed, and the devices redeployed at the Silver Spring rental. He told me carefully that this pattern suggested operations rotation, keeping the installed camera count low across multiple properties to evade detection, while still cycling the recording locations to maintain content novelty. The 2 cleaned properties had each had at least 4 prior guests during the same 9-month period as the Silver Spring rentals recorded footage. None of those prior guests had reported anything. The detective did not speculate on whether those prior guests had been recorded earlier and then erased, or whether they had simply been at the properties during periods when the cameras had been physically elsewhere. Friday evening, a Southern Pines cabin in Aiken County, South Carolina, 28 hours into a long overdue sister's weekend. The dresser mirror in my bedroom hung 4 feet off the ground, tilted forward maybe 1 or 2 degrees, reflecting at the wrong angle. By midnight, I had confirmed via a phone flashlight test. It was a 2-way mirror with a camera behind it. By Saturday at noon, Aiken County Sheriff's deputies had recovered a USB drive, 200 hours of footage. It included not just us, but the Crespo couple. Their civil suit against the rental host had been making national news for the past several months. I had not registered the connection. I'm Cassandra, 29, marketing manager in Charleston. Bella is 26, a graphic designer in Atlanta. Y'all know how sisters' weekends go. Both of us had been working too much. Both of us had complicated relationships in different ways. Both of us needed a few days of just being together, without our partners or our families. We had been talking about it for a year. We had picked the Aiken County cabin because it had a private fire pit, hiking trails, a private dock on a small pond. We had paid $2,400 for 4 nights, including cleaning fees. We had booked through Airbnb. The listing was 4.9 stars, 270 reviews, Superhost badge. The host name in the listing was Rhett. The listing photograph showed a man in his 50s with a beard, friendly smile, holding a fishing pole on what appeared to be the cabin's dock. Rhett had messaged us through the Airbnb messaging system the day we arrived, to welcome us and to remind us where the lockbox was. The message was warm and detailed, the kind of host who sounds like he wants you to enjoy the place. We had not thought twice. The cabin was lovely. Stone fireplace, exposed wood beams, 3 bedrooms. Bella took the master bedroom. I took the second bedroom with the queen bed. The third bedroom was set up as a small office, and Bella and I had no reason to enter it. We unpacked, we made tea, we walked to the dock, we sat on the dock for 2 hours before sunset and talked. Friday evening was when I noticed the mirror. I want to be careful describing this because the trial walked through every step. I had been brushing my teeth at the dresser-mounted mirror in my bedroom. There was no en-suite bathroom. The cabin had a shared hallway bathroom that Bella and I were both using. The dresser mirror was a tall, rectangular piece of glass mounted on the wall above the dresser, about 4 feet off the ground at its bottom edge. The top of the mirror was about 7 feet up. Most dresser mirrors I had seen in vacation rentals are mounted lower. The bottom edge usually starts at 3 feet, the top at maybe 6. This mirror was hung higher than normal. I leaned in close to brush my teeth. As I did, I caught my reflection at an angle I would not normally have seen in a wall mirror. The reflection showed me from a slightly elevated perspective, as though the mirror were tilted forward by maybe 1 or 2 degrees. Wall mirrors are not typically tilted. I want to be precise about what I did next because I have walked through it many times since. I picked up my phone from the dresser. I turned on the flashlight. I held the flashlight directly against the mirror surface. There is a test for two-way mirrors that involves holding a light source against the surface. If the surface is a true mirror, you should see only the reflected light. If it is a two-way mirror, you should see a faint outline of what is behind it, sometimes including the lens of a camera. I saw a faint outline behind the mirror. There was a rectangular object, roughly 6 inches by 3 inches, mounted directly behind where my flashlight was. The object had a small protruding cylinder, a lens. I did not breathe for about 4 seconds. I turned the flashlight off. I walked into the hallway. I walked into Bella's bedroom. I told her quietly that we needed to leave the cabin tonight and that I would explain in the car. She did not ask any questions. She is my sister. She trusts me. We packed in 22 minutes. We left the cabin lights on. We left our food in the refrigerator. We carried our suitcases to the car. We drove out the gravel driveway and onto the main road. We drove 12 miles to a Hampton Inn in Aiken. We checked in. I called Aiken County Sheriff's Office from the hotel room at 11:55 p.m. Deputy Mercer arrived at the Hampton Inn within 50 minutes. He took our statement. He looked at the photographs I had been able to take of the mirror angle from across the bedroom. I had not photographed the flashlight test because I had been too shocked. I told him so. He said the angle photographs would be sufficient for a warrant. He requested one at the magistrate's home that night. The warrant was issued at 3 a.m. Aiken County Sheriff's deputies plus a SLED South Carolina Law Enforcement Division electronics evidence specialist entered the cabin Saturday morning at 7 a.m. They removed the mirror. Behind the mirror was a Wi-Fi-enabled 4-megapixel surveillance camera with motion detection. The camera was wired to a small network drive in the cabin's office bedroom. The third bedroom Bella and I had never entered. The drive contained approximately 200 hours of recorded footage from 12 different guest days over the previous 14 months. The drive was networked to a remote server at the host's residence in nearby Aiken. The host, Rhett Riviere, 48, real name, was arrested at his residence Saturday afternoon. The SLED investigation revealed that Riviere had been operating 6 rental properties across Aiken County. Subsequent warrants on the other 5 properties found cameras in 4 of them. Across the 4 camera-equipped properties, SLED recovered approximately 800 hours of recorded footage from guests over a 3-year period. One of the most recorded guests across the 4 properties was a couple named Maria and Daniel Crespo. The Crespos had stayed at 3 of Riviere's properties across 2 years. They had been repeat customers based on what they thought was excellent host service. The Crespos had been recorded in intimate moments at all 3 of their stays. The Crespos had filed a civil suit against Riviere when they had been notified by SLED. Their civil trial had concluded the August before our incident. The jury had awarded the Crespos $45 million in damages. The case had been making national news. I had read about the Crespo case in passing without realizing the connection. The host being sued was the same host who had been so warm in his Airbnb message to us. Riviere was charged criminally with 3 counts of felony voyeurism. Aiken County prosecutors had elected to charge the 3 most egregious recorded incidents. They consolidated the rest as evidence of pattern rather than as separate counts to streamline the trial. He was convicted by a jury 9 months later. 9 years state prison. lifetime sex offender registry, lifetime ban from any short-term rental licensing in South Carolina. Bella and I joined the larger civil suit against Riviere. Our case was consolidated with 8 other identified guest victims and settled for approximately $1.2 million total, divided unequally based on length and severity of recorded incidents. The Crespo couple's $45 million was paid out from a separate adjudication. I had 14 months of weekly therapy and 6 months of EMDR. Bella took a 5-month mental health leave from her firm. I moved from Charleston to a different city. I had associated Charleston with the trip planning conversations and needed a fresh location. Bella and I no longer book vacation rentals. We have not stayed under the same roof since the Aiken trip, except at our parents' house. The thing I come back to is the flashlight test. I had seen it on a TikTok video maybe a year before the trip. I had not remembered watching it. I had remembered, in the moment, exactly what to do. Hold the flashlight directly against the mirror surface. Look for a faint outline. The technique had worked because the camera behind the mirror had been mounted close enough to the glass for the flashlight beam to penetrate. If the camera had been further back, say 2 feet rather than 2 inches, the test would not have worked. Bella and I would have packed up Sunday morning without ever knowing what had been in the wall. I think about the TikTok video sometimes. I do not know who made it. I have not been able to find it again. Sled's investigation continued for months after his sentencing. Riviere's network of properties had recorded approximately 170 guest victims across the 3-year window. The Crespo's $45 million verdict became precedent for hidden camera vacation rental litigation. The Sled agent said, carefully, that our 4 cases, Crespo, Silver Spring, Hocking Hills, and ours, had become a curriculum. I have not stayed in any short-term rental since the Aiken trip. Bella has not either. Our parents bought a small lake house property the year after my settlement landed, retirement savings, plus a contribution Bella and I both made. The lake house is on a small county road in rural Georgia. Our family stays there together when we travel. I have driven to it 9 times. I do not stay anywhere else when I travel. The trip Bella and I had been planning for a year had been intended to be a small celebration of the kind of independence 2 adult sisters earned together. The trip we took home from Aiken was not that. The trip we take each spring now to our parents' lake house is what is left.